Next up, Board Member, Chair Wright of the Finance Committee. Is that next? Yep. Yes. Board Member Reby.
So I voted to change the bylaws, but then I looked at it a little more carefully, and I want to know if we are going to allow, you have to notify people that they can come to the meetings, which is fine. If we all of a sudden have a lot of people that want to come to this meeting, is it going to be first come, first serve, or are we going to see how many people have? So if, say Laura comes to every audit meeting, but then all of a sudden I decide that I want to have an opportunity, how do we decide who gets to go to that without creating a quorum, or do we just announce there's going to be a quorum and open the meeting up? So what's the fallback for that one if it turns into a quorum?
We've had these discussions in the past, since I've been on the board, and if we put some, and part of those discussions in the past have been, well, let's just do first come, first serve, which is a good rule. I mean, it's a good way to manage that, so audit can function the way they're supposed to function in a closed meeting before it becomes an open meeting, because we have 8 or more board members there. And then one of the challenges with that is who's most aggressive on the phone that wants, and so, okay, is that going to be the standard? And so what we have done in the past is we always ask how many is going to be there, and so we know ahead of time. And then if we have more than that, then leadership reaches out and say, hey, we've got more than a quorum. Are you really wanting to be here? And people have always volunteered to say, okay, hey, I was just going to go. I really didn't have something. So we didn't want to have it too defined, and that's how it is today.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that.
Board Member Wright.
Okay, the Finance Committee had a large agenda, though thanks to Board Member Stokes, we've kind of adopted an approach where if we have unanimous agreement.
Chair, before we get going on this, can we have Deputy Superintendent Jones come up? Because I think we'll probably have some direction, probably have some involvement in on this. We can find him, have him just come up, because we'll probably be there just to help expedite time here. Okay, please continue.
So when we have consent, it's unanimous. We place it on the consent calendar. So a number of things were placed on the consent calendar and have already been approved. I think it's worth noting, item 9.4, every single LEA, 100%, submitted the school fees assurance form by the October 31st deadline. Wonderful, right? Well, that doesn't mean that they are complying. They believe they're complying, and what that means is it seems to be different. So that's something for the next board to really delve into. That will be a lot of fun. The next thing is 9.5, Early Childhood Integrated Data Systems. We submitted a grant request for $300,000. They want to monitor childhood, long-term health outcomes. We discussed that. I had some concerns with privacy. They said it would not be personally identifiable. So we voted unanimously to use $300,000 from the grant to build an early childhood integrated data system.
Okay, so you want me to go to the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I just triple checking our consent. I usually do that in advance, and I didn't do it this time, so I apologize. Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve using $300,000 from the statewide longitudinal data system grant, well, the SLDS grant, for the purpose of developing an early childhood integrated data system, which has another acronym. So that's a motion before the board. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, I'll we'll take this to vote. The motion before the board is board approved using the $300,000 from the statewide longitudinal data system grant for the purpose of developing an early childhood integrated data system. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. No.
Will the ayes raise your hand and be counted? Okay, we have Board Member Cannon, Board Member Lear, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Hanson, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Stokes, Board Member Nilsson, Board Member Reby, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, that's 9, myself, it's 10. Will the ayes be, so that passes, will the nays, let's make sure we get them recognized. Do you have them, or do you need to more?
No, I think
Okay,
Um,
please continue.
9.6 didn't get enough votes to,
Oh, hang on. Brian, hang on a sec.
Sure, let's see, 9.4 is listed as an action item, but there was no action taken, no motion. Was that intentional?
there didn't need to be any. It was like there was a-
Does a
potential
motion need
for
to be
action
made to
today.
accept that report, or is that a mistake that it's listed as
that's,
an
that's
action
a
item?
mistake, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we just wanted to make
Okay.
sure.
Well,
Okay, hang on one sec. Okay.
It means there's potential action.
Okay. One second. Okay. Deputy Superintendent Scott
Deputy
Jones.
Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. So the reason why it was stated as an action item was first and foremost, staff were charged with making sure that we reported to the Finance Committee the results of the submissions of the assurance forms by the LEAs, which the due date was October 31st. So we reported that all 100% had submitted to on time or had made their submissions. So we reported that to the Finance Committee. So it's not a mistake with the action, because had they not, then there might have necessarily been a motion made or recommendation to the full board. But since they all reported or submitted 100% compliance, okay, on that, I don't think there's any action here today, right? But we did have to make it as an action item, not knowing for certain whether or not all the submissions would have come in. Does that make sense? So I just needed to explain that to you. It was a placeholder action. Is that okay? It's a potential
We're
action.
speaking to 9.4.
You don't need to make an action here, but it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mistake to make it an action item. It was something that we did,
That is a
you know,
placeholder.
for that, okay?
Okay, so as a
Thank you.
placeholder. So questions to 9.4, Board Member Belknap?
Thank you. I just actually wanted to make a comment that the submissions are full and complete. That doesn't mean they all marked compliant on their forms. Their forms are in. So I just wanted to make that clarity.
Okay.
Cha-
Deputy Superintendent?
Chair, through you to Board Member Belknap, correct. What I was saying was that they were compliant with submitting the forms. There are differences or, you know, and that's fine. You know, now we can go through those by way of the individuals that will be assigned to follow up on that as part of the overall process. It's all good. So, thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Can-
That's good.
Deputy,
Okay, okay. Back to you, Chair Wright.
Deputy Jones, in those submissions, do they self-identify if they're not in compliance?
Yes.
And so you believe that some of those will identify that they are not in compliance? Will the full board and the public get a report of those, or is it kept confidential?
But that's up to, so as you know, there's parallel processes going on, i.e. employees that are being assigned or dedicated to support the school fees, results of the task force, but the board still needs to hear that. You need to go through that process, so eventually, yes. I don't know when, but eventually we'll address all of the, by LEA, what the situation is, in a productive and supportive manner, not necessarily, you know, because it just depends. I can't sit here and say, this is this one, this is that one. Not today. We'll just have to work through it, because we've got this. We've got this, the LEAs have this. We'll work through it, but you still need to know and see what the results of the task force were and develop that, and I think we're on the road to awesome there too, so, okay?
Okay, we're straying from,
Sorry, yeah.
this a little bit. The
Yes, sir,
question,
just-
the question was, for clarity, it's the fact that the submission was received and you have 100% of them. The other part of it is, it was not part of our committee action or motion, correct? Okay, so there'll be further development and further opportunity for discovery on this request,
Okay.
Chair Wright.
Well, I can say this because I'm gone next month. I mean, the failure to educate and enforce school fees the last 4 years on our LEAs, I'm one of the people who's responsible for that. I've failed, and I'm sorry, LEAs. We're hopefully going to get a whole lot better on this very soon. You elected me to do this, and I didn't do as good of a job as I should have. I hope the next board is better.
Okay, Chair, let's try to stay with what came out of our committee,
I know
okay?
I can get away with
Thank
this
you.
now because I'm gone
Appreciate it.
next
I know
month.
you can. If I let you.
9.6.
Or not.
Or maybe you'll
but-
cut off my audio.
Yeah. I'm not tempted to do that, but in
Okay.
interest of time in the other committees.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
9.6, I'm just bringing to your attention, it failed to come up. We still want further discussion on that. You'll need to talk to Board Members Hanson
Yeah,
and
me too.
Huntsman if you're really interested in that further.
They need to take an act.
Um,
Having staff, they need to.
Hey, hang on one sec.
The board member can make a motion now that the board
Yeah.
consider that.
Yes, and, yeah. So as we're going through this, if a board member wants to bring something up, they can
Okay.
to add to this. And I believe this is what's, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but.
No, it's a good
There's
point.
a couple things
It's a very good
here. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
So I intended to make a motion, but I just want to ask a question first. Was the intention of the committee discussion that come back for further discussion on those topics, or was it just, I don't agree with those things, and therefore it didn't move forward?
Well, Chair, would you want to address it? It
Yeah.
didn't take, there wasn't a, I had to step out to take a call.
Okay.
And we didn't have a full quorum there, and it was a 2-to-1 vote. So, let me go to Board Member Warner,
Hanson?
or you know
I'm
what?
channeling
It's
Terrell
Hanson,
today.
sorry, I don't know why I'm getting that in my head, I apologize. Board Member Hanson.
So I voted against it, so it did, and Mark was out, so it didn't pass. But Scott did ask if I was okay with it coming to the full board, so I am okay with it. As a matter of fact, I might change my mind depending on what the discussion is with the full board. I just am kind of sitting on the fence with a couple of things.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I make a motion then?
Should we
Well,
have
hang
Deputy
on.
Jones
Well,
discuss it, maybe?
Yeah, but I want to still
Yeah.
go through this real fast. There's other committee members that may weigh in on it. Board Member Reby?
Yeah, we did have a pretty robust conversation about it, and I think Linda felt it was fiscally responsible for everyone to be involved in this conversation, so that's why.
Okay. Board Member Cannon, and then I'll go to,
I just, my understanding is that if an item is on a committee agenda and it does not come forward with a positive motion for the board, that then it is considered by the full board. So I think it's appropriate to consider this.
it can be moved forward.
Yeah,
the motion, what is
but
your-
it comes forward to the board without the endorsement of the committee.
That is correct, and it will take a motion and a second. So it'll take a motion. Did you?
Yeah, I'd like to. So I
Vice
move
Chair Brittany
that,
Cummins, okay.
I move that we approve the recommendations for the the discretionary carry forward funding, sorry, the board discretionary funding requests. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion to the motion. Did you want to? Okay. Board Member Hanson.
So my concern is, if you look down to the one that says budget proposal PDF, that one, The capital improvement, I had questions about that, but I think that they've explained that to me all, so I'm comfortable with that. But the budget proposal PDF talks about the communications budget. And this is like $500,000, a little more than $500,000. And we're going to talk about contracting with public relations firms to assist to get the board's strategic plan out there and some of these other things. Really, it was explained that there would be some really high-quality print materials that could go out and all of those kinds of things. I have a district that is struggling because they're $168,000 short because they were working on tell me, Scott.
Competency.
Yeah, competency-based education. And when we talk about spending $500,000, it gives me pause that we're spending $500,000 on this when they're so short and struggling because they were doing competency-based education and so I didn't vote for it because I was just a little concerned about spending money on these things. Not that they're not good things and not that it's not well thought out. I was just concerned about it.
Okay, let me restate the motion before the board, and that's the board approve the recommendations for board discretionary funding request. Board Member Reby?
Part of that discussion also was that as a board, we make some decisions, and because of miscommunication and a lack of communication from our board, sometimes we work harder to make things happen. So I think that by putting forth the information ahead of time, we're going to be saving ourselves money by not combating some of the negative publicity we've gotten and some of the miscommunication that goes out through the airwaves without us really having that message, people kind of creating their own message. So that was kind of why I agreed with it. I thought it was a really great way for us to be more proactive towards our message and creating less work on the other side of those decisions.
And if I might just weigh in really quick, because some board members have asked, I'll speak openly on this. I had to take a phone call from a client. I stepped out, but if I was back into the committee when this came up on the agenda, that I would have been for the proposal, and then we'd have had a different motion going forward on that. Superintendent Dixon?
I think one of the challenges we constantly have in this office is that of communication. And you look at our peers at USHE, at UTEC, and they have large budgets for communication. We have created zero budget for communication. So our peers in other states have huge communication staffs. We have minimal staff. And our staff does a great job. So if you think of our communication staff, it's Emily and Mark and Barb Fuentes and working with Tiffany. We don't have marketing on staff, and I can't tell you how many legislators and others will say to me, why don't you guys engage with PR firms and marketing firms and messaging firms? And so I hear what Board Member Hansen is saying, because our schools need money and they need more money. This is discretionary money internally, so it's not money that we could or would push out to schools, but it's internal money for internal use. And we think this is a critical time as we especially step into the session to get everything aligned with your strategic plan, with our strategic plan. And we've been kicking this can down the road for several years of needing to have some funds to reach out to external sources to help us with marketing and communications. Districts do it all the time, and we just have not done that. And I think we continue to pay the price for that. So we see this as a good investment that's important and timely.
Okay. Vice Chair Ellis?
Did you, in the Finance Committee, was it discussed, obviously the dollar figure was discussed, but varying degrees of spending so that we aren't putting $500,000 into this? I struggle, our communication team has done a great job informing the public of things, but sometimes I've struggled seeing messages that, because we all interpret things different and we have different world perspective. And so I'm concerned about spending $500,000 on something, and I just I'm hesitant thinking, well, what are we sending? But that can all be discussed later. But I'm just wondering if there's a way to look at this discretionary budget and put less money towards that and still give effective communication. In today's tech world, there are ways to communicate a lot cheaper than we do. And I agree, communication is something that is sorely lacking. And we continue to try to work on it, but it needs improvement constantly. So my question is, to get down to it, is did you look at any other dollar amounts or just this $500,000 figure? And what's the justification for such a large dollar amount versus, a lot less?
Deputy Superintendent Jones?
I feel confident in answering the question that we did do the due diligence and looked at it. Since it is the first year, we conceivably we'd be doing this, providing communications budget. One thing that I feel strongly about with the convergence between communications programs, financial operations, all of that we have, is that all of us don't necessarily spend money just to spend money. You can establish a budget of $500,000 or slightly over. I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend it all, especially in the first year where it's kind of difficult to know until you have prior year expenditures to base your decision making on. It is an accurate figure. For example, $100,000 would go to a high quality PR firm. That's part of the mention that was detailed in there. So let's see what we get as far as the return on the investment goes. And then we would come back to you as a board and say, we either need less money and let's direct this money over to here, because that's what's great about federal mineral lease dollars is it's specified uses for research and development. It's a developmental funding source that allows you the flexibility to do that. We have to start somewhere. I feel that the Chief of Staff did a pretty good job of going out and comparing other state budgets and saying, hey, this is what they're expending on that. So that's why we're proposing it to you as an R&D type activity. And as we know, with R&D, it can take 1 or 2 years to really determine, did we get the ROI we want, which is increased communication, the ability to demonstrate your strategic plan and have it put out as to the far reaches of the state of Utah on that too. So hopefully that helps.
Can I?
Okay, follow up?
Sorry,
No,
I'm
you're
just, while
fine.
you're talking, thinking in my, what I would like to see happen is some more IT type of stuff, which I know we're drowning there, where
Sure.
people can click to follow certain committees like the legislators
Okay.
have, Was that any money funneled there, or was it all just PR?
No, Chair?
Okay, follow up?
Sorry if it was.
No, great question, ma'am. No, actually, part of the proposal is $500,000 of the FML balance towards IT for that purpose. So now that you've specified to us too as well, did you see that? Did any board members that did see the $500,000? Yes, ma'am. We are. We're working hard on the infrastructure for that as well. So to do research and development along the line that the vice chair just described.
Sorry, thank you. I
No,
did
you're
look at that
fine.
chart,
No,
but
you're
I
fine.
didn't-
No, it's slow, smooth as fast. I'm really glad you're asking these questions. This is transparency at its best.
Okay, Board Member Lear, and there's still a handful.
Laura was,
You moved me out of queue.
yeah, Laura was before I was.
Okay, Board Member Belknap.
Oh, I am on. I'm waiting. Okay, so where was this money earmarked? Is it okay if I direct my questions to Scott, Chair? Is that
Yes.
okay? All right, thank you. Where was this money earmarked before, and why is it left over? And is this a one-time fund, and how will we continue it to keep going? This is one long question. And it's this $600,000 that's going to be used over several years, and how many? And would we have to change FTEs to continue this to go?
Okay, great questions, ma'am. So.
I guess there won't be a follow-up after all.
Okay, so let me speak to the fund types, okay? So the state funding that we proposed for you was basically carry forward from your budget,
From
the
our
board's
budget.
budget.
That's
Yes,
what I
ma'am.
wanted to make sure.
So it's at your discretion to use, right? And so that's the proposal that we made for continuing investment in your structure here, in the facility. Because, and I think this is important for you to note, if we did go out, I got the pricing of, so if we were to lift and shift into a building of the square footage, it would be tens of millions of dollars for us to spend to lift and shift the Utah State Board of Education out into a similar building. Okay, so the decision was made several months, years ago. Well, let's invest, let's come up to ADA standards. So part of that money would be used for restroom accommodations, right? Because back when the first bids came in, since then, commodity pricing has gone up considerably, right? Parts, based on that. So part of that $600,000 would be $100,000 going into that. So that explains that part. With the federal mineral lease money, if you'll recall, some of you board members that were here 3 or 4 years ago, is we were heavily into using federal mineral lease money for positions. And fortunately or unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, when energy prices drop, for years, and hopefully Natalie or Deborah, if she's in here, will shake their heads north and south. For a while, the board was getting upwards of $3 million in proceeds from federal mineral lease dollars, and it dropped dramatically when the energy prices. So in good faith and good stewardship of funding, we embarked over a 1 or 2 year period now to remove long-term support for funding of positions out of that funding source. Now, there are still, I believe, 2.5 positions in there that we just have not been able to move, but that's down from, I think it was up to around 12 or some positions that we moved out. Then there was some other budgetary concerns with that as we dropped that down. And we refocused on what the purpose of FML money is, which is research and development. And now that's what we're coming to you and we're proposing is a more of an R&D stance or use of that money. Okay, so here's the situation. It did climb up a little bit. We got about, I think, 1.3 million that came in, but not 3 million, right? And now, if you are listening to the market, what's happening now? Energy prices are dropping again, right? So it's a month. Each month we get a particular amount of the proceeds by law that come from all the leases and others that are occurring all over the state without getting into too much detail on that. So I feel confident that first and foremost, all the alignment that took place, or realignment, if you will, moving into finance, the change in the chart of accounts, all of these efforts that you've experienced with us over the last couple of years are paying off in the sense of knowing for sure how much we have, what the intended purpose of that money is for, and then coming to you and giving you suggestions on how best to invest that. That is responsible because, again, right, wrong, or indifferent to this, it would be significantly expensive to modernize your building and do that if we were to lift and shift into a new building. Lease rates right now are just through the roof. So if you do have a constituent that says, man, it seems like you're investing a lot of money into that facility. Yeah, true. Yeah, I can see that. But think about what the alternative is, right? Where is the alternative to getting to what right looks like as far as the ability for you to govern and supervise public education? I hope that helps.
Okay, and we are in the facility management business. We have a facility.
Right.
And we have employees, and we created
Yeah,
an environment for them to be successful. And it seems like a lot of money, but then when you break it down to price per square foot and us doing our due diligence, it's not that, it's relevant because it's a huge sum, but it doesn't seem that relevant when you break it out in square footage and purpose of
Right.
keeping the doors open and safety.
Sure.
And
I can provide that.
I know, but
I can give you all those details. Yes,
But
sir.
again, I just want to remind the board members, we are in the facility business here, and that's what's been in the proposal. There's a few more comments here. Board Member Hanson? Who did I skip? Board Member Lear? Well, you told,
No, I just said she could go before me. I didn't say it, so I thought.
okay, well, I'm just going by these slides, so.
Sorry.
Okay. Board Member Hanson, did you have more? And then we have 2 other.
I just would like
Okay, I couldn't remember.
these questions divided, so that when we vote on these, we vote on each one of these individual and not the whole group together.
So are you wanting to amend the motion?
Yes. Or I'm just calling division.
Okay, so separate motion to divide? Okay, you can. Do we have a second? Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's divided.
I'm opposed. I'm opposed.
Oh. Oh, I thought, oh, I didn't do the opposed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, with the ayes, raise their hand. Sorry. To have it divided. Board Member Cummins, Board Member Wright, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Hanson, I think I got it right, Hanson. Board Member Nielsen, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Ellis, Board Member Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, that's 8. That motion passes. Do you need the nays? Okay, so it will be divided. So with that motion,
You sure?
okay, we're all good on the math? Correct? Okay. So by being divided, then the motion that I'll recognize that's on the table, and there's still comments here. The new motion would be, because of this, is to approve the $603,725.61 in capital improvements. So I'm right, I'm still good, right? Okay. We're going to speak to that. There's 3 board members. Board Member Wright?
I guess I wanted to speak on the public relations thing as,
Okay, so
But
then
that's
turn
not
your,
it.
then turn your, you guys, we're going to speak to the capital improvements first. We're going to hit
All
each
right.
one, so if you guys
I
want to
wanna
turn your
speak on
lights
the
off, then I
public
won't
relations.
recognize you. Board Member Stokes?
I moved the previous question. Well, we have a motion on the table, right?
The 603,000, that would be the capital improvements.
The 603. Okay, all right. So we'll vote on it. To end debate. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Vote is unanimous, so thank you. So the motion on the table is to approve the $603,725,006.61. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. The next motion before us is the school fee section, personnel and travel, which is $13,855.90. Board Member Reby?
I move this question.
Okay. Move to question. We're going to end debate.
Second.
Do I have a second? Who seconded?
Me.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. I don't want to discuss it, I just don't want to take off the ability for people to discuss, so I'm saying no.
We only disagree about one.
Okay, the motion passes. So we're going to vote on it. School fee section / personnel travel, $13,855.90. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. The next is the Strategic Communications Research and Development, which is $596,652.77. Going to debate. Board Member Wright?
everything that Superintendent Dixon has said on this, I agree with. But I guess here's my concern after being on it 4 years. I appreciate that some of the money needs to be put into being, that we're just generally awesome, and people should know who we are, and the governor's not really in charge of public education, and we are, and just kind of some basics like that. But another part, and I really hope, is when we vote for something that's bold or audacious, we can get excoriated and just vilified to no end. And that's when we need to pull out some guns and fire back. And two specific, the Utah High School Athletic Association went after us ferociously 3 years ago. I personally think it's some of the finest work that I've done while on the board, and the board did as well. And we needed to fire back. And then the second thing is when we removed some of the required classes for 7th and 8th grade, I also thought that was some of the finest work that we did. We got excoriated, and we needed to fight back on that stronger than we did. So I hope some of that money goes to defend the board when we do make some bold decisions, because I hope you guys will not be afraid to make bold decisions in the future.
And I might speak to this just a little bit. The intent here is we're creating a tool that benefits the board. So there'll be evolution as this rolls out. So if we can keep that in mind, it's still ours. Okay, Board Member Lear.
And I want to, if I can, respond to Joel just briefly, but then also make a more general comment. And I think one of the challenges will be is firing back, so to speak. It has to be a majority of the board decision. And as I recall those two issues specifically, there was a very divided board. And so one of the limitations on then the board staff is to represent the majority of the board, and I don't recall that there was a majority of the board that agreed on those specific two issues.
It passed, so that's
Well, they did, but in terms of going forward, how it would go forward was not necessarily unanimously determined. True, that's true. And not really my main point. My point is more general, that sometimes, no, my main point is that generally there has to be unanimity for the board communications staff to be firing back or speaking out on an issue. And that is a majority. And if I was using that as an illustration, and if it was a poor one, apologize to Spencer. More importantly, Scott is persuading me that I think that this is a necessary expenditure for the board. But the challenge will be, sort of to my previous point, of then trusting the staff to decide how things are promoted and which things are promoted and how much time and energy is spent on those things. And I think that's something I think will be sometimes hard for maybe all board members, depending on the individual issues. So I think that's going to be a challenge going forward, is trusting so that which things
we have three more
need time.
board members that want to pipe in.
Finally, just let me just end my comment by saying,
Okay.
I think that it is, if it's important enough to be the board to be doing this, we shouldn't be doing it with mineral lease money. We should be building it into our budget with a stable amount of stable funding.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Did you have a comment?
Well, I wanted to say, it might be an opportunity to bring the chief of staff forward and ask her to address any questions you have. I mean, it's the communication, but okay. I mean,
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have three other board members. Vice Chair Ellis, please.
So I have a comment, but I also had a specific question. I just want to make sure I'm completely understanding. But I just wanted to address some of the things Board Member Lear said, because I don't want this to be a subjective thing, because there have been times where it has been a majority vote, and I'm in the losing side, and we move forward with communication plans, pushing things forward. And so I don't want staff picking and choosing which items they're choosing to pick up the ball for, because you're going to not be happy sometimes, and I'm going to be not happy sometimes. So, and then, but I just want to get back to this funding a little bit. So if I'm understanding correctly, you were saying that the first order of business would be to hire a PR firm for $100,000, and then we may or may not spend the rest of the money depending on what their recommendations are. So how do we decide then that because the IT stuff that we just funded wasn't necessarily going to the communication part of it. So the part that we just voted for with the capital improvements, which had IT space redesign on there, that's not necessarily part of the communication part of it.
No.
And so I'm just trying to figure out how is this going to come back to a committee, to finance committee to decide once the PR firm, we spend that $100,000, how we move forward, or, because we're approving, I mean, if we vote yes, we're approving almost $600,000, and yet what I was hearing is that we're only planning on spending $100,000, and then we'll decide, well, who's going to decide? Will that come back to the board? That's what I want to clarify, get clarification on.
Okay.
So
Deputy
to
Superintendent.
clarify, when I brought up $100,000 of the $500,000 currently, so the superintendent has a discretionary budget as well. We didn't ask for new money for that purpose because that roughly $52,000 was still left over from state fiscal year 16. So currently, there is a PRF, purchase request form for $100,000 for a PR firm. If you direct that as part of your approval to use the 500, or when you approve the $560,000, we could either, reinstate the $100,000 to the superintendent for her discretionary use, which is authorized. But then if you're saying that as part of our approval, we want you to come back to a committee and update us on the execution of the $100,000 and what the PR firm's doing, we certainly could do that. Am I tracking that
You know, I just was
correctly?
trying to make sure I understood
Yeah.
what you said to me, so.
Yeah, it was just an example. I was just using the $100,000 to say that, because the question that I was answering was, have you done your due diligence and looked at, how this funding would be used? Well, yeah, the answer is yes. And we were
Right.
moving forward on
No,
the
and I
line.
don't question that
Yeah.
you didn't do your due
Oh,
diligence.
no.
It was the
Mm.
statement that we then could decide not to move forward, and so I was just trying to figure out if that was,
Yes.
what that would look like.
And conceivably, it would look like just as you described it. We can come back and report to you specifically, first of all, that the money was executed. For example, a PR firm was hired and this is what they're doing for us. That can certainly come back to a committee. You can always stipulate to the staff the follow-up procedures, because you would get that, you get the expenditure report in the monthly budget report, and you're able to click down on that and say, okay, it went towards a PR firm, it went towards this person. You always have that capability. But if you want more details on what the return on the investment is, absolutely, we can do that at your direction, at the board's direction.
Board Member Reby.
So I had a whole thing planned to say, but my colleague here said, I think the votes are kind of set in your head, so I'm going to call the question.
Do we have a second? Okay. Let's vote. All in favor to end debate, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the ayes raise your hand and be recognized? Board Member Wright, Board Member Cannon, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Lear, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Hanson, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Stokes, Board Member Reby. That's 9.
Also, Terrell's on the line, we have to have 2/3 to end it.
Um,
Terrell's on the line as well, so.
Terrell, are you going to weigh in? Well, I'm weighing in. I'm a yes.
Make sure we can hear Terrell, because we couldn't hear Laura when she was on.
Well, we've got 10 right now. We're going to end debate. There's 11. Do you want to be recognized on this, Board Member Warner?
I'm not sure we can hear her, because Laura was on before. And we couldn't.
Okay. Well, we have 11. So we have 11. That's 2/3. We're ending debate. Okay. The motion before the board is to approve the strategic communications research and development for $596,652.77. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Will the ayes raise your hand to be recognized. Board Member Cannon, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Lear, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Stokes, Board Member Nielsen, Board Member Reby, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, it's 9, and then I'm 10.
Let's see if Carol's on. I've asked her,
Terrell, do you want to?
I don't think we can hear her. You could, because we couldn't hear Laura. when she was-
were you on? Were you on?
We don't,
But I'd like to, I have to record her vote if she makes a vote, so I need to
but,
know.
so there's a couple things. She's not present to do it, so she can't be her vote won't be recognized. And with our technical difficulties that we're having right now, she unfortunately can't be recognized. So we're good. Okay. Moving forward, the next one is the $500,000 for IT research and development for training, implementation, and monitoring supplies and materials. So that is the motion. Discussion to that motion. Board Member Stokes?
Oh, I was just, I moved the previous question.
Okay, we have a motion to end debate on this. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Board Member
You're
Reby.
making this go longer because no one was going to make a comment, didn't they?
All of those in favor to end debate, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, voting was unanimous, so the motion.
I'm a no, sorry.
Okay. We have one nay. Okay,
Who made that motion, sir?
what's that?
Who made the motion to end debate?
I did.
Okay,
Stokes.
next, Spencer.
And second by Board Member Reby. Okay, the motion before the board is on the board discretionary recommendation of $500,000 to go to IT research and development for training, implementation, and monitoring supplies and materials. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay, Chair, we're moving forward. Let me turn your mic back on.
Thank you. I'm going to skip to 9.1. I thought that was really quite interesting. If you didn't, 9.10.
Okay.
The head count. Our growth is slowing here in Utah. The birth rate is slowing. And so while we're still growing in Utah and we're growing faster, we're not growing as fast. And this will have substantial long-term implications here in Utah. It could make some things easier. But I think that's very important to note. The last thing that we have to vote on is 9.11. Taxing and Committee with West Jordan City. My firm and I do work for Jordan School District, so I'm going to declare a conflict and remove myself from the room. Turn over to Vice Chair Reby.
Board Member Reby, do you want to cover the recommendation, please, from the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I need to turn this on. Okay.
Representatives from West Jordan City presented a request to the committee to amend the existing Fairchild Economic Development Area, EDA, to Project Pepper River. They came before us a number of times. There's a project summary here. They are good members of our community. They benefit the community. So the motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board directs its TEC representative to vote in alignment with Jordan School District.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board direct its TEC Tech representative to vote in alignment with the Jordan School District. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Just a question about the population rate decreasing. Did that include all birth rates or just
Oh, you're talking about the previous comment?
previous comment? Yeah.
I think we can
You want me
go
to
there and
hold that?
answer that question. It was enrollment, if I remember right, that,
Right, but was that decrease from in-state families and, or is it more due to less children coming into the schools just from moving? Was there a difference between moving and those that are already residents here in the state? Does that make sense?
So your question was about the rates, so Deputy Superintendent.
I understand it's not what we're talking.
Jones.
That's okay. To the
But
question.
I'm okay. We'll
But I-
just
The
get to the
statistics.
vote. We'll just answer the question and we'll get back to the motion.
Yes, so real quick, Chair Wright mentioned birth rates are lower. So those are two different
Just birth-
statistics you're
okay.
talking about that are used in the Common Data Committee assessment. So there's the birth rates, internal to
Board
Utah.
Member Wright, we haven't voted on this yet.
But then there's the migration part, I think, that you're asking for. So
Right.
those are two different, what I can do is get that information to you offline if you prefer.
That would be great. Thank
Okay?
you.
Can I do that, Chair?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
thanks.
All right. Okay. The motion before the board is that the board direct its TEC Tech representative to vote in alignment with the Jordan School District. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. We have one no. Motion passes. Okay, would you invite Chair Wright back in? Board Member Wright, I believe this is all of the actionable items from your committee.
That is, I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you.